Hello children, welcome back. I'm Dr. Jisha Joe. In this session, we shall discuss the important questions from the chapter, the Circulatory System. First, we shall move on to the definition type questions. Lymph, plasma without RBC and platelets. Serum, plasma without fibrinogen, is called serum. Plasma, fluid part of the blood, is called plasma. Diapedesis, process by which the white blood cells squeeze out through the walls of the capillaries into the tissues. Give importance to the term squeeze out. It is not ooze out. Squeeze out through the walls of the capillaries. Phagocytosis, process by which the white blood cells, particularly the neutrophils, engulf particle-like solid substances, especially bacteria. Blood transfusion, process by which the blood from a healthy person, who is called as a donor, is transferred to a person undergoing surgery or who is in need of blood, who is called as a recipient. Double circulation, blood flows twice through the heart before it completes one full round. This is called double circulation. Portal vein, a vein which starts and ends in capillaries. Pulse, alternate expansion and elastic recoil of the wall of the artery during ventricular systole. Blood pressure, pressure which the blood flowing through the arteries exert on their walls. Next, moving on to explain type questions. Explain briefly or write short notes. Blood coagulation or clot formation. There is a flow chart in the text. Study thoroughly the flow chart. Angina pectoris, myocardial infarction, and double circulation. So here when you explain the term double circulation, when explain briefly is the question, you have to mention about the pulmonary circulation and systemic circulation also. Now, differentiation type questions. Closed circulatory system and open circulatory system. Closed circulatory system, blood flows through the blood vessels, whereas in open circulatory system, as in the case of insects, the blood flows through open spaces in the body. Erythrocytes and leucocytes. Okay. There are several differences between the two, so study all the differences as you can. For example, mainly it can be asked as differentiate as given in the bracket. For example, the shape. So you should know erythrocytes are disc-shaped, biconcave disc-shaped. Leucocytes are amoeboid in shape. So all the differences you should be familiar with. Okay, suppose if they say differentiate on the basis of nucleus, then you should know erythrocytes do not have nucleus, whereas leukocytes have nucleus. Or lifespan can be asked. So when you study, go through point out all the differences and mark and study the differences between the two. Blood and lymph. Okay, lymph. What is lymph? Lymph is the plasma without RBC and blood platelets. RBC and blood platelets are absent in lymph. Polycythemia and erythropenia. Polycythemia is abnormal decreased condition. It is an abnormal decrease in the number of RBCs, whereas, polycythemia is an abnormal increase in the number of RBCs and erythropenia is an abnormal decrease in the number of RBCs. granular WBC and non-granular WBCs. Granular WBCs, you should know what are the types of WBCs coming under granular type and non-granular type. So granular type includes the neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils, which contain the granules in the cytoplasm, whereas the non-granular WBCs do not contain granules, and these include the lymphocytes and the monocytes. Neutrophils and eosinophils. For this also you should know all the differences, like for example based on the nucleus, based on their function. All these, based on all these, whatever differences when you study, mark it and study. Eosinophils and basophils, just as I told in the previous question between eosinophil and neutrophil, the same thing here also. Based on the nucleus, the number of lobes of the nucleus can be asked mostly. Then leukemia and leukopenia. Leukemia is an abnormal increase in the number of WBCs, whereas leukopenia is an abnormal decrease in the number of WBCs. Lymphocytes and monocytes, here also can give like for example based on the nucleus, lymphocytes have a large single nucleus, whereas monocytes have kidney shaped nucleus. Then based on function also can be asked to differentiate. Leucocytes and thrombocytes. Leucocytes are WBCs and thrombocytes maybe differentiate on the basis of function. So leukocytes help in the protection of the body. Thrombocytes help in blood clotting. Okay, so such type of questions you can expect. Tricuspid valve and bicuspid valve. So where is the tricuspid valve located? In between the right atrium. Location or the position can be asked in between the right atrium and the right ventricle, and the bicuspid valve or the mitral valve is located between the left atrium and the left ventricle, or sometimes the function can also be asked. Similarly, pulmonary valve and pulmonary semilunar valve and aortic semilunar valve. Here also based on location or based on function you might be asked to differentiate. Lub sound and dub sound. When is the lub sound heard? When is it produced? That might be the question that is given in bracket. Lub is produced when atrioventricular valves get closed at the start of ventricular systole, and dub sound is produced at the beginning of ventricular diastole when the semilunar valves get closed. So don't get confused between the two. You should know at what when are these sounds heard, and by the closure of which valves are these sounds heard. You should know. Plasma and serum. What is serum? Serum is plasma without fibrinogen. Plasma is the liquid part of the blood. Systolic phase and diastolic phase. Systolic phase, remember, it is the contraction phase, and diastolic phase is the relaxation phase of the heart. Artery and vein. There are several differences which you can study between arteries and veins. There's a table in the text showing the differences between the two. Sometimes you might be asked to differentiate based on their definition, or based on their position, that is location, based on the blood flow, based on the presence or absence of valves, based on the type of blood flowing through them. So give importance to those differences in the table and study. Pulmonary circulation and systemic circulation. It comes under double circulation. The long circulation is the systemic circulation, and the short circulation is the pulmonary circulation. From where till where? That might be what you are expected to write. So study it from the text. diastolic pressure and systolic pressure. Diastolic pressure is the pressure noticed or pressure noted at the time of ventricular diastole, or as we say systolic pressure. If we say, it is the upper limit of pressure which is noted when fresh blood is pushed through the artery during ventricular contraction or at the time of ventricular contraction, and diastolic pressure is the lower limit of blood pressure which is noted when the wave has passed over. Okay, and what is it? What is the value? The normal systolic pressure is 100 to 140 millimeters, and diastolic pressure is 60 to 80 millimeters. Tissue fluid and lymph. Okay, what is tissue fluid? The fluid that is present in between the cells, which again here it contain the plasma along with the WBCs. And as we have seen in the previous, in the last video, I have given a detailed description of the difference between tissue fluid and lymph. Okay, so some of the tissue fluid may enter back into the capillary, but most of it enters into another system of vessels when called as the lymph vessel. When it enters into the lymph vessel, it is called as lymph. Okay. The lymph mostly contain the lymphocytes. Now moving on to the location and role type questions. Blood location. What is the location? It is it is a part of the circulatory system. It is a component of circulatory system. Where is it located? In the blood vessels. Okay. So fluid present inside the blood vessels, that is location. And what is the role? We have a lot many roles that which functions of the blood which we have to study. So write the function. Okay, can be involved in the transportation of gases, food, that means nutrients, waste materials, all that. Protection of the body for blood clotting. All these you can mention in one sentence or by putting commas. Since it is a 1 mark question, we know for location and role type question, if you just write the location and if you don't know the role, then you won't be getting mark. Only if you write both location and role, you will get 1 mark. Okay, there's no half mark for this question. So you should know the location as well as the role of each of the term. Hemoglobin is the red colored pigment that is present in the RBCs, and function of hemoglobin is to transport oxygen. Okay, mostly oxygen in the form of oxyhemoglobin, and some amount of carbon dioxide is also transported as aminohemoglobin. Okay, so that is the it is present in RBC. Now RBC, they are the red blood cells. Again, they are the cellular one of the cellular elements of blood. The function is the transportation of gases, nutrients, waste materials, etc. Okay, WBC, again one of the cellular component or element of blood, and it is concerned with the protection of the body or giving immunity to the body. Okay. Thrombocytes, again one of the cellular elements of blood, and function is it helps in clotting. It helps in blood clotting. Then moving on to the neutrophils, again location, again it is a type of WBC. Okay, and the function, what is the function of neutrophils? They are mainly concerned with phagocytosis. Okay. Basophils, again type of WBC, which is a cellular component of cellular element of blood, and the function is mainly it is concerned with the release of histamines for inflammation. Then eosinophils, again it is a component of or it is a type of WBC, and it is one of the cellular component of blood. And the function of eosinophil is mainly to secrete antitoxin. Also, it is associated with allergy. So, I think there is a box in the there is a table given in our book. So, please study the functions, and the also the diagrams are also important. Just lymphocytes again, it is a non-granular component of non-granular type of WBC, and the main function is to produce antibodies. Monocytes is again a non-granular component or type of WBC, and the function is mainly to engulf germs or phagocytosis. Pericardium is the outer covering of the heart. Okay, double-layered membranous covering of the heart is called pericardium, and function of the pericardium is to protect the heart, protection of the heart from mechanical injuries. Pericardial fluid is again the fluid that is present in between the two membranes of the pericardium. Okay, and the function, it is a lubricating fluid. It reduces the friction during heartbeat and protects the heart from mechanical injuries. Coronary artery, that is the artery that supplies blood to the muscles of the heart. And where is it located? It arises from the base of the aorta. Caudate tendinae are tendinous cords which arise from the papillary muscles, or which attach the papillary muscles to the ends of the to the flaps of the valves, the tricuspid and bicuspid valves. Okay, and they are actually, what is the function? They hold the flaps of the cuspid valves in position and preventing their overturn into the atria. Okay, so it prevents the backward flow of blood. It allows the blood to flow from the atrium into the ventricle during atrial systole, and also it prevents the backward flow of blood from the ventricle to the atria during ventricular systole. Okay, so they are tendinous cords arising from the wall of the ventricles, or they are attached to the wall of the ventricles. Tendinous cords attached to the wall of the ventricles by means of the papillary muscles. The tricuspid valve location in between the in between the right atrium and the right ventricle, and the function is to allow the blood to flow from the right atrium into the right ventricle during atrial systole, and prevents the backward flow of blood from the right ventricle to the right atrium during ventricular systole. Similarly, here also bicuspid valve or mitral valve, that is located in between the left atrium and the left ventricle, and here also the function is similar to what we have seen for tricuspid valve. Aortic semilunar valve, it is located at the origin of aorta from the left ventricle, and what is the function? It prevents the backward flow of blood into the ventricle during ventricular diastole. When the ventricles expand, there is a chance or tendency for the blood that has entered into the aorta to flow back. It is these valves that prevent the backward flow of blood from the aorta into the left ventricles. Similarly, pulmonary semilunar valve, also located at the opening of the right ventricle into the pulmonary artery, or at the base of the pulmonary artery. You can see the pulmonary semilunar valve, and here also the function is the same, that is during ventricular diastole there is a chance for the blood that has entered into the pulmonary artery to flow back into the right ventricle, and this is prevented by the pulmonary semilunar valve. Then SAN is the sinoatrial node, and we know it is the region of the heart where the heartbeat, the impulse for the heartbeat arises at this region. And where is it located? It is located on the walls of the right auricle, close to the opening of the superior vena cava. Okay. Next is AVN. AVN is the atrioventricular node. It is found near the interauricular septum near the tricuspid valve. And what does it do? What is the role of AVN? It transmits the impulse that has been generated at the SAN to the bundle of muscle fibers called as the bundle of His. Coming to the hepatic portal vein, where is it located? It is located between the intestine and the liver, and the function is to carry the digested food from the stomach and intestine into the liver. So that the excess sugar is stored in the liver as glycogen, and also certain poisons may be absorbed or detoxified in the liver before it is transported or passed throughout the body. Hepatic artery is the artery that brings oxygenated blood to the liver. Okay. It arises from the aorta and it brings oxygenated blood to the liver. Hepatic vein, it arises from the liver and it ends, or it pours the blood, deoxygenated blood from the liver to the posterior vena cava. Renal artery is the artery that provides oxygenated blood to the kidney, and it arises from the aorta and extends to the kidney. And renal vein, it arises from the kidney and it pours the blood, that is deoxygenated blood from the kidney is poured into the posterior vena cava by the renal vein. Now we shall move on to the give reason type questions. Erythrocytes are small and biconcave disc shaped. Okay, the small size and the biconcave disc shape provides a large surface area to which makes them efficient oxygen carriers, and also the small size helps them to travel through the very small capillaries. Death occurs due to furnaces burning in small rooms without ventilation, that is due to carbon monoxide poisoning. We know hemoglobin has a strong affinity for carbon monoxide, so when carbon monoxide is present in the air, hemoglobin combines with carbon monoxide instead of oxygen to form carboxyhemoglobin, and this reduces the oxygen carrying capacity of blood, and this leads to carbon monoxide poisoning, and the person dies. Matured RBCs lack nucleus, mitochondria and endoplasmic reticulum. We know loss of nucleus increases the surface area volume ratio for absorbing more oxygen. The biconcave shape of the RBC is due to the lack of nucleus, and we have seen it increases the surface area for the absorption of oxygen. Then lack of mitochondria, so that mitochondria, we know it is the site of cellular respiration. So if there is no mitochondria, it means that all the oxygen that is absorbed from the lungs is transported to the tissues, and also it means that the full entire glucose in the blood plasma, the full it also means that the full glucose is transported through the RBCs, because aerobic respiration will not take place, so the entire glucose is also transported in the blood plasma. Now, lack of endoplasmic reticulum, it provides increased flexibility to the RBC so that they can move through the minute capillaries. People living at high altitudes have increased RBC count. We know at high altitudes the amount of oxygen is less. So to carry more oxygen, the number of RBCs will increase. As the number of RBCs increases, it will be able to carry more amount of oxygen. Persons with blood group O are called universal donors. What is the reason? Universal O group persons are universal donors because they have no antigen. Okay, and AB group persons are called universal recipients. That is because they have no antibody. Okay, they have no antibody in them. An Rh negative woman may become sensitive if she carries an Rh positive child. We know the Rh positive child will develop antibody for the Rh factor in the mother, and as a result the mother gets sensitized. Sometimes the first child, there won't be any problem for the first child if the mother is sensitized, but the second child, if again it is positive, then it will lead to several problems and may even cause the death of the fetus. We feel that the heart is located on the left side. That is because we know the shape of the heart is roughly triangular, and the pointed end of the heart, of the triangular heart, is slightly tilted towards the left side, and the contraction of the heart is maximum at this end, giving us a feeling that the heart is located on the left side. Auricles have thinner walls than ventricles because the function of the auricles is just to receive the blood and just pour this blood into the ventricles very near to them or lying very close to them, just below them. So that is why they have very thin walls. The left ventricle has a much thicker wall than the right ventricle because the function of the left ventricle is to pump blood to all the different parts of the body, whereas the right ventricle just pumps the blood to the lungs, which are very close to the heart. Smaller the size of an organism, faster is the heart rate. This is because the smaller the size of an animal, more it tends to lose its body heat because of the high surface volume ratio, and as a result the increased heartbeat helps to distribute the body heat faster. A newborn infant has faster heart rate than an adult. That is again in newborns the rate of metabolism is the metabolism for body growth is very high, because baby grows very fast, and as a result the babies or infants have higher metabolism for body growth, and the body or the cells of the body need faster supply and takeoff of the metabolic substances in high quantities, and that is the reason why newborn babies have faster heart rate than an adult. Okay, so I hope you have understood that. That is, newborns have a higher metabolism for body growth, and the body needs faster supply or the right supply of the essential nutrients or the metabolic substances should be supplied and taken off at the right amounts. So for this reason, the heart has to beat faster. Arteries have thick muscular walls because the blood inside the arteries is flowing under very high pressure. That is the reason why they have thick muscular walls. Blood flows in spurts in the arteries because in the arteries, how is the blood flowing? Blood enters into the arteries as a result of ventricular contraction or ventricular systole. So it is with pressure that the blood enters into the arteries, and then it flows smoothly. So the blood flow in the arteries is first when during ventricular contraction the blood jumps into the arteries, then flows uniformly. So that is why we say that the blood flows in spurts in the arteries. So blood flow in the arteries is due to ventricular contraction. That is why the flow of blood is said to be in spurts in the arteries. Veins have pocket-shaped valves in them. Yes, the function of the veins is to carry blood from all the different parts of the body to the heart. Deoxygenated blood is carried from all the different parts of the body, that is, even from the tip of our toes, the blood has to be transported to the heart. So this flow of blood is against gravity. So there is a chance for the backward flow of blood. So the presence of these pocket-shaped valves in the veins prevent this backward flow of blood in the veins. Arteries are deep-seated. Again, this because the blood flow, the blood flowing in the arteries is under high pressure. So that is, if they are superficially situated, there is a chance for the arteries to burst. That is why they are deep-seated. Capillaries are thin-walled. That is, the thin walls of the capillaries allow for the diffusion of gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide, and also diffusion of substances are possible. And in our text there are a few functions on the arteries. All those are the reasons for this. We have also seen that it is through the thin wall of the capillaries the diapedesis, the process of diapedesis take place. So for all these reasons, the capillaries should be thin-walled. Now moving on to the structure type questions. Diapedesis and phagocytosis, again that is asked as a diagram based question. There is a figure in the text showing diapedesis and phagocytosis that can be asked as a diagram based question. Identification of blood cells. So you should also you should draw and study the blood cells. So in case if it is asked for identification also, you will be able to answer. Okay, look at the number of lobes of the nucleus, and you will be easily able to identify the look at the structure of the nucleus, and that is how we are able to identify the blood cells. So draw and study. It is better to draw and study. So if it comes as a diagram based question also, you will be able to answer. Types of WBCs, again diagram can be asked. Okay. Blood clotting, the flow chart in the text, that is important to complete the flow chart. Mostly it can be asked like that. Okay, blanks will be put up here and there in the flow chart, and you will be asked to complete the flow chart. External structure of the heart as a diagram based question. Okay, maybe about 10 years back there was a question to draw the structure of the heart, but recently no such question as to draw the structure of the heart has been asked. So there is more chance for this to be asked as a diagram based question. But if you draw and study, then you will never forget the structure and the functions of each and every part of the heart. If you draw it and study, it will be easier for you. Okay, but for the exam, it is normally asked as a diagram-based question. Internal structure of the heart is also asked as a diagram-based question. That means diagram-based question, you should know to label the different parts. Okay, one of the question in the main question, one sub-question will be, the first sub-question in the main question will be to label the different parts which are numbered from 1 to 10, like that. So you should be able to label the parts. So for labeling the parts, you should know, or you should be thorough with the diagram. So for that, it is better to draw and study the structure. Then ventricular systole or atrial systole as a diagram based question to identify which phase it is. Okay, and labelings can be asked, and questions based on the diagram can be asked. Structure of artery and vein, it can be asked for diagram to draw a neat labeled diagram, or it can be asked as a diagram based question to identify. They will give the diagram and you will be asked to identify. You will be asked to write the difference between the two. So draw and study the diagram. Okay, so that can be asked to for drawing also can be asked. So it is better that you draw and study the diagram, so that if it is asked as a diagram based question also, you will be able to answer. Structure of artery and vein. Now, diagrammatic representation of the blood circulation. At the end of the chapter, there are a few questions, similar type of questions given in the review part. You can see a few questions like this, that is the diagrammatic representation of blood circulation. It is very easy to answer this question. Only thing is that you should study for a few minutes. You should study carefully the representation, the schematic representation, and then it is very easy. The question will be to label the different vessels that are shown there. Okay, to label the different vessels what type of blood such a vessel or the vessel number 8 carries. Such type of questions can be asked. Okay, or which is name the vessel that carries blood into the kidney. Kidney will be there marked there, and a vessel will be entering into the kidney, and you will be asked to label that. So such type of questions, diagrammatic representation of blood circulation can be asked. Okay, it is easy. Just only thing is that you should spend a few minutes to identify the different vessels. Only if you identify it correctly, you will get it correct. Okay. Once your identification is correct, then it is easy for you to answer such type of questions. So children, with this we have come to the end of question discussion of this chapter, that is the circulatory system. I hope whatever we have discussed is clear to you. If you have any doubts or suggestions, please ask your doubts and give your suggestions in the comment section. Thank you.